Hello, and welcome to another 14 Words. Well, I'm going for a wee now, so everyone
Right,
can talk.
great. Ian, go for it. We won't do
Welcome.
any of the funny stuff. We got to get straight into the content. We got to get through this fast. So no more beating around the bush, no more procrastination. Hobbit, shut up.
Yeah, so don't fuck about. So
Yeah. Unlike Fred
sorry,
West, who
sorry
did a
for
lot
the
of
delay
fucking
tonight, but it's going to be worth waiting. So we're gonna cover the West murders. So we're all looking forward to that. So Hemmy's having a wee, so let's just kick off. I'm sure he'll be with us shortly. So, some time ago, we did a 14 Words about Fred and Rose West, and that night we covered quite a bit about their backgrounds, looked at the factors about like what fucked them up and why they turned into a killer couple. However, we ran a bit short on time that evening, and we didn't look at the murders themselves in too much detail. So tonight we're gonna follow that up, and we're gonna look at the murders that Fred admitted to and that he and Rose were convicted of. There were 12 murders altogether, and we're going to cover how they happened and what took place. So fasten yourselves into your seatbelts. Let's go for it. So if you've not heard it already, I suggest you listen to 14 Words 45, Fred and Rose West, from the 6th of September 2020, which is the first part of what we're going to cover tonight. That show is still available, and we got some good feedback that night from a viewer called William Coyle, who said the following about the programme. So this is the sort of feedback we got that night. He said this. This is the worst podcast I have ever heard. All over the place, joking and laughing in most parts at the tragic case and something which was totally disrespectful to the living members of the West family concerned. After a few short clicks running through the contents, I was disgusted with some of the language and switched off after the boring and offensive contents. Suggest you lay off the booze while trying to present any future podcasts. So, that's what he said. So, after reading that, I took a good look at myself and felt thoroughly ashamed of what I'd done. Thereafter, I promised to change my ways. I cut down on my drinking, stopped using the language of the gutter, and thought twice before making light of tragic situations. It's not funny to laugh at those less fortunate than ourselves, and the mentally handicapped shouldn't be a source of amusement, though they are. It's not big and it's not clever, all right? Okay. Anyway, firstly, though, what we'll do firstly, let's just recap on that previous episode, which we did in 2020. Story so far. Fred and Rose both had dysfunctional upbringings. Fred had a perverted upbringing of bestiality and incest. The highlight of his early years has to be when he was 19 years old and he got his 13-year-old sister pregnant. In 1962, Fred married a Scottish woman called Rena. She eventually found himself working as an ice cream van driver in Glasgow. Though there's no hard evidence of Fred murdering anyone in Glasgow, he did have an allotment when he lived there. It was noticed by other plot holders that Fred only cultivated a small section of his allotment. The rest of the plot had been raked over, as if he were going to plant something. He never did. When he was asked why he did this, Fred replied, "I'm keeping it for something special." So, mystery already surrounding Fred's allotment. Lots of young women are reported missing in Glasgow each year, but at least 4 young girls disappeared at the time Fred lived in the city. And their disappearances fitted Fred's modus operandum, sort of age, type, circumstances. The allotment would have been a perfect burial ground for Fred's victims, but we'll never know if he buried any bodies there, as the allotments were obliterated by thousands of tons of concrete that formed the junction 22 of the M8 motorway, where it joins the M77 to Kilmarnock. So the allotments are no longer there. It's now a motorway. We'll never know. It can't be dug up. So that's that buggered, basically. In 1965, Fred ran over and killed a 3-year-old boy whilst driving his ice cream van. Despite being cleared by the police of the death, it was put down as an accident. This prompted Fred to move back to his childhood home of Muchmarcle near Gloucester. So there's a bit of background. Just a brief overview of Fred.
I'll have a look in a minute, see if I can find that serial killer.
That was the warm-up act, I believe, Ian. So, I just practiced in Glasgow. Now he went to England for the main event.
It was a bit like
he might have been hard.
Did a skid, it's a kid, didn't he?
He might have been hard at it in Glasgow. He might have. That might be where he could have committed a few murders, if not many there, but we'll never know. We'll never know because it's so long ago.
That's why Westminster is also named after Fred West.
It is, yes.
I'll ask her, Dom.
Yeah. Is that the wife is going to South Devon?
In Dorset.
She approves of that. Oh, right, fair enough. I thought she... Yeah. Anyway, okay then. Let's go.
Dom's not drunk enough yet for the proper comedy.
I'm more drunk tonight.
is when Ian sets it up and Dom's got no idea what he's talking about.
I'm working on it.
I got pissed during the wait for the show to start tonight. I was knocking it back in that period.
I was waiting a cagey tonight.
Yeah. Anyway, okay then.
I blew all my best content before the jerk-off crystals were charged up. I'm telling them interesting coincidences, but maybe that'll be another show.
That's right. Anyway, okay then. So let's move on to Rose. Anyway, Rose had a similar dysfunctional upbringing to Fred's, sexually abused by her psychotic father, and incest with her brothers. Rose met Fred in 1969.
Incest, what, like a wasp?
Incest. Yeah, that's right. Incest. So, Rose met Fred in 69. Yeah. 1969, shortly after her 15th birthday. Fred was 27 at the time, so pedo. Yeah. They got married in 1972 and embarked on a life together of murder and rape. It's unknown how many murders Fred and Rose committed, and we will never know. Fred was convicted of 12 murders, and Rose was implicated in 10 of these. So it's these murders that we're mainly going to focus on tonight, the ones that we know about.
The original plan for him was Fred to cop to the lot, weren't it? But some of them,
it was, yes. That was
physically impossible for Fred to have done because he was in prison at the time, wasn't he?
We're going to cover that, but so yeah, okay then. So that's what we're going to look at. So between December 1965 and January 1967, 8 violent sexual assaults were committed in the Gloucester area by a man fitting Fred's description. These include a girl in Cheltenham who was struck on the head when walking near her home, a 15-year-old who was grabbed in Gloucester, and a nurse who had her jaw broken in an attack and was kicked in the cunt. Also, a 15-year-old boy. Yeah, that's right. So, also, a 15-year-old boy named Robin Holt died in a bizarre circumstances during this period. Fred became friendly with Robin at the Engate factory plant in Gloucester. The factory built farm machinery and had a large order in 1967, which meant a number of extra men, including Fred, were hired as casual labourers. Robin was also hired to work at the plant. On the 20th of February 1967, Robin failed to return to his home on the outskirts of Gloucester. The next day, he was seen in Fred's home village of Muchmarcle. 9 days later, Robin's body had been discovered, hanged, in a disused cowshed near his home. In the shed, pornographic magazines had been found, and nooses had been drawn on the necks of the models. The verdict of the inquest was that the boy had committed suicide. In 1994, however, police working on the West case became interested in Robin's death, but could not establish a definitive link. So, people were dying around Fred, though he wasn't, it couldn't be established exactly, that he did it. Peculiar. But, he's close to death and people he knew were dying. Anyway. Okay. Let's move on and look at murders themselves. Anna McFall, and let's go into the first picture there, if you can, Hemi.
Oh, yeah.
Just show the first victim. It was at this time that Fred was living in a caravan at the Timberlands Caravan Park in Brockwood, Gloucester. Also living in the caravan was Fred's wife, Rena, their daughter, Anne-Marie, 3, Rena's other daughter, Charmaine, and 2 other women, Isa McNeil and Anna McFall. The 2 additional women had come from Glasgow to seek work, so... As we can imagine, it was quite a squeeze, with 4 adults and 3 children living in a caravan. Fred exhibited dominance and control over all 3 women, and he was prone to violent mood swings. Rena and McFall typically bore the brunt of his fury, and he would also physically attack and sexually abuse his daughter, Charmaine. He also encouraged Rena to go on the game to supplement his meagre income. So it's a bit of a messed up caravan going on there. Due to Fred's domestic abuse and increasingly sexual demands, Rena moved back to Glasgow. She couldn't handle it, taking McNeil with her. This left Anna McFall, Fred, and the 3 children living in the caravan. Fred and Anne then had an affair. She was 16 at the time and eventually got pregnant with Fred's child. Fred was 8 years his senior. So, in America, these people would be referred to as trailer trash. So, during her time together with Fred, Anne would write to her mother in Glasgow saying that she and Fred had moved out of the caravan into a beautiful house and they planned to marry. This was bullshit. They were struggling to make ends meet and were still living in the caravan. Anne wanted Fred to divorce Rena so that she could marry him. This is not what Fred wanted, and he did not want Rena to find out that Anne was having his child. Rena would still visit Fred to see the children, and she moved back to Gloucester. The stress of this had become insupportable for Fred, and he reached crisis point as Anne's pregnancy enters its final weeks. Fred probably decided he simply could not allow Anne to have the child. It would give her too strong a claim over him and would cause problems with Rena. Plus, he could not afford to support another baby. Anne McFall was last seen in July 1967. So, yes. During police interviews in 1994, Fred denied he had murdered Anne, even though he knew where she was buried. Her skeletal remains were found along with the remains of her unborn child in a field in Kempley, near Fred's home village of Muchmarkle. Fred suggested that Rena and another person had killed her. However, private conversations that Fred had does suggest that he killed her. It is not known for certain where Fred committed the crime, but he later told a prison visitor that he had killed her in a caravan, stabbing her to death after an argument. When Anne's remains were discovered all those years later, a length of dressing gown type cord was found wrapped around the wrists, suggesting that there may have been a sexual element to her death. Perhaps Fred and Anne had been indulging in some form of bondage before she died. Perhaps he had tied her up so that he could take pleasure from torturing her before committing murder. It is possible that Fred even got carried away as he performed a bizarre sexual act and killed her by accident. Never know. Little of any certainty is known about the death of Anne, although it comes first in the murder career of Fred West. By the time Fred got round to telling police about this murder, he had completely lost his mind, so he wasn't making much sense, and witnesses to this relationship were rare. What is known is that Fred dismembered Anne's corpse. So yeah, a bit messed up there, isn't it? Yeah.
Just a bit.
Yeah. Okay then. So if you've got no questions, what I'm going to do is move on. Just give you...
sounds normal, Ian. Love is love. Bigger.
It's a normal night out for you, is it? Yeah, well, killing your girlfriend.
I'm open-minded. I understand that love is love, and far be it for me to judge, because I'm not a bigot.
Yeah.
Unlike Gloucester police.
Anyway. All right, let's just look into a bit about this process that Fred would have gone through. To cut up a human body requires a great amount of physical and mental effort. Dismemberment is not only extraordinarily unpleasant, but physically tiring and technically difficult. The body of a pregnant woman would have been heavy and literally a dead weight. Would have oozed large amounts of blood when Fred started cutting. Everything that Fred was wearing would have been sodden with blood. Human remains would have covered the floor, making it slippery. Blood would have got on the walls. For this reason, Fred would have had to carry out the dismemberment in a place where he would not have been disturbed, perhaps his own caravan. Fred would have needed several different cutting tools and would have needed facilities to wash himself, clear up the mess, and change his clothes. It would have taken at least half an hour to cut the body up, probably longer. Fred had worked in an abattoir in his younger life on a farm, so he would have learned how to cut up meat and applied these skills to the dissection of his victims. He worked as an ice cream van driver in Glasgow. He worked in an abattoir as well, did he?
Yeah, apparently in Glasgow or something, or he was mates. Was it Glasgow-born screenwriter Paul Pender publicly urged police to reopen the Henry Feeney case. He'd received a tip-off from a man who worked in a Glasgow abattoir with Rena Costello. Oh, with Rena. Rena worked in an abattoir.
She ended up getting a taste of her own medicine. Yeah. So what, Fred did know this guy who worked in the abattoir in Glasgow?
Oh, he would. Yeah, when Fred would visit so Pender said at the time, when Fred would visit the abattoir, he would apparently ask lots of questions about how to use all the bits of the carcass and was fascinated by the dismemberment process.
Eerie.
Yeah.
Fred said that he cut up his victims to make it easier to bury them. He explained...
Have you talked about when he ran over the kid yet? Or...
We discussed that last time. I mentioned it briefly when you were in the toilet. So,
right. So Pender believes West lured the boy using a small ball, which he then claimed was stuck under a hedge behind the van. When the child went to retrieve it, West reversed over him at high speed. Whoops.
I wouldn't put it past him, though. That death was put down as an accident by police, so he wasn't committed, and it's not clear.
I'm trying to find the link with this other serial killer. I just can't bloody find it because I saw it on a documentary. It was one of the documentaries. It was like the possible victims of Fred West, one of those types.
Yeah, I wish they'd come up with. It'd be good if we could get more information on the possible victims. But just to tie up this section, so Fred said he cut up his victims to make them easier to bury. He explained that he only needed to dig a relatively small hole to bury a dismembered body, whereas an intact corpse would require a coffin-length-sized hole, which would require much more effort to dig. Yeah, obviously there's more victims, aren't there?
Have you said about when he left Glasgow?
Yeah, we covered that. Yeah.
So it said, what was it? So it says here. It says the gang attacked the van with knives, razors, bricks, and hatchets. but Fred managed to escape. Colin added, it was like a scene from a cowboy movie when the bad guy gets run out of town. West was lucky that day to survive. The gang leader said he planned to cut his head off.
I didn't cover that, no, but
Yeah.
we do know that...
And then my favourite quote from the whole thing, unbelievably, Fred West was our ice cream man and had become Fred West the mass murderer.
The horrible thing is, whenever someone says cut your head off, I just think, I know somebody else who threatened to cut someone's fucking head off, and it just... I can't help but think of it, and, like, I shouldn't laugh, but I do laugh.
We do laugh. You gotta laugh.
But ice cream van driver was a good job for him, you know, if you're a pedo in general, it's ideal, isn't it? That or school caretaker. But anyway.
Oh,
so
it says here, it says Fred and Rose West's 18 unknown victims, as police never doubted there are more. So they do think there are 18 more, I think.
Oh yeah, they know there are, but obviously Fred is dead and Rose is banged up, so you know
Fred didn't necessarily know. Rose wouldn't know about the murders before Fred was dead, unless Fred told her the whole lot. So.
So she says.
Oh, yeah. Did you say that his allotment is now part of the M8 motorway?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, all right then. Okay, so let's move on to the next picture there, Hemi. We'll look at the next victim in this catalogue of atrocity.
He murdered Anne Frank.
Yep, he murdered Anne Frank herself. So she put it in her diary. She met a man with a West Country accent, and anyway, okay then. So.
Do you know that the West Country accent was actually established by Fred West?
I thought it was established by a pirate.
Are you telling me Fred West is a real-life Joseph Paxton?
Yes.
In between murdering people, he was inventing, accents, doing this, doing that. The inspiration for Pet Shop Boys Go West.
Paving, did you know that?
Anyway, okay, let's look at Charmaine West, which is the next murder in this series. So Charmaine West was the daughter of Fred's first wife, Rena. She was not Fred's daughter, and she was 8 years old when she was murdered. According to school records, Charmaine went missing on the 15th of June, 1971. At this time, Fred and Rose had started their relationship and were renting a flat together at 25 Midland Road, Gloucester, with 3 children. Charmaine and Anne-Marie from Fred's first marriage, plus Heather, Fred and Rose's first child, who was a baby at the time. So they had moved out of the caravan now, and they were living in an actual flat, so they'd given up the pikey lifestyle.
Who actually lives at that address now?
It does exist, so I'm sure someone does live there. It wasn't destroyed like 25 Cromwell Street, but yeah, I'm sure it's got quite a few tourists coming out looking at that. Anyway, in 1994, Charmaine's skeleton was dug up in the garden of Midland Road, and this was initially put down as another of Fred's killings. However, a closer look at the date of the killing paints a different picture. In November 1970, Fred was arrested for various petty crimes, like stealing tyres and forging tax discs, and he was sent to prison for 10 months for these. Charmaine disappeared in June 1971. This would mean that when she was murdered, Fred would have still been in prison and couldn't have killed her. Fred's other daughter, Anne-Marie, stated in court that she came home from school one day at the time. Fred was away in prison. Charmaine was no longer there. Rose told her that she had gone to live with her mother, Rena, and Charmaine was never seen again. So this could only mean Rose had killed Charmaine, because obviously Fred wasn't there, was he? So, so yeah. Rose had always denied the killing to anyone. She was clearly lying. At the time, Rose was 17, and with Fred being in prison, she had to look after 3 young children by herself in a small flat. The kids were probably playing up, and with Rose having a short fuse and not being right in the head, she probably battered or stabbed Charmaine to death. Neighbours and family of Fred and Rose said that Rose was too heavy-handed when dealing with the kids. Charmaine was a disruptive child and no doubt suffered more at the hands of Rose than the other children did. Neighbours said that they once saw Charmaine stood on a chair in the kitchen with her hands tied whilst Rose hit her with a large wooden spoon. Records at Gloucester Royal Hospital show that Rose took Charmaine to casualty on the evening of the 28th of March 1971 with an ugly puncture wound to her left ankle. It was recorded as an injury sustained at Midland Road, though it was more likely Rose did it. In letters from Rose to Fred in prison at this time, Rose says how she was getting pissed off with the children and how she had to treat them rough, especially Charmaine. Yeah. Fred was released from prison on the 24th of June 1971. No doubt the first thing that Rose told Fred would have been that she murdered Charmaine. She wasn't Fred's biological daughter, so she was probably not bothered. So he probably wasn't that bothered about it, and he didn't like Charmaine much anyway. Rose kept Charmaine's body in the coal cellar of Midland Road, and Fred buried the body in the backyard of the property upon his return home. In 1994, Fred said he could not bring himself to dismember the body as she was young and pure. At this stage, both Fred and Rose had now committed murders. So there you go. Pretty fucked up, eh?
You ever heard of David and Pauline Williams? They were friends of Fred West, who were paedophiles. In 2016, they were targeted in possible murder inquiry.
And related to the case. Well, they were involved. Fred and Rose were involved with other people in sort of swingers circles and dogging and shit, but I don't know. There's not too much. What are they? They been convicted of anything? These two?
Well, they were on. All I found was just they were targeted in a possible murder inquiry, but these was speaking at the time of their sentencing. Detective Constable Debbie Dow said David and Pauline Williams carried out a string of sickening and callous sexual attacks on children and teenagers without remorse over a 15-year period. Okay. During the Williams trial, the couple boasted of their friendship with the infamous serial killers Fred and Rose West. Throughout the 80s and 90s, the West reportedly drank at the Prince Albert, a Gloucester pub run by David Williams.
That's ironic, isn't it? It's called the Prince Albert, which is also, isn't that a ring?
Yeah.
Isn't that that's serious, isn't it? Yeah.
Which was saying when Prince Albert lost bet on who would get to found like the West Country accent, and so he had to get a Prince Albert piercing and lost to Fred West. Prince Albert.
Yeah. Anyway, so as you can see there, the victims were now mounting up. So if no one's got any questions, we'll go over to Dom, who's going to tell us more about the murders of Fred and Rose West.
Okay, the next victim is Catherine Costello. Come on down. Yeah. If we can put the picture up of that one, please.
Oh, that's Rena, isn't it?
That was a nickname.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Her birth name was Catherine, but people called her.
I meant like calling. I knew the picture was Rena.
Some people called Richard. If you're called Richards, people call you Dick, don't they?
Yeah.
So
I'll clear this up, right? November 1962, Fred married his first wife, Scottish woman Catherine Costello.
That was a bit of
Yes, Rena.
First wife, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's weird, yeah. As previously mentioned, they lived together in Glasgow, where Fred worked as an ice cream van driver. Moved to Gloucester and lived in various caravan parks, and then Rena left Fred in 1969. Rena was last heard of in 1971. She was 27 years old. It is believed that Fred murdered her in August of that year. In August of 1971, Rena came looking for her daughter Charmaine, unaware that she had been murdered. She went to Fred's family home of Moorcourt Cottage in Muchmarcle to ask Fred's family if they knew of Charmaine's whereabouts. She did not, but she was able to meet with Fred, agreed to take her to see Charmaine, and she got into his car. Firstly, Fred took her to a pub, got her completely hammered. Fred got her back to his car. He strangled her. He was totally pissed, so she couldn't put up much of a fight. This action firstly solved the problem of getting rid of Rena, who was drawing attention to the missing Charmaine. Secondly, it satisfied his hunger for sadistic sexual acts.
Cool. Wait there. Have you seen Charmaine? Alaska. Like she's in Alaska, in Canada. Oh right. All right, Alaska. Right, anyway. Dorset in Alaska.
Okay.
Hope Damien's satisfied now.
He loves the Alaska joke. This is favourite joke.
Anyway, Fred took the body to 25 Midland Road to dismember it. Must have made a hell of a mess,
Alaska.
and he put the body parts into bags and put the bags in a car. He then drove towards Muchmarcle late at night and buried the body in Letterbox Field. Fred confessed his murders in 1994. He named one victim as Rena Dorset. Yes, her remains were discovered in Letterbox Field. Muchmarcle later that year.
Hold on. Off license says, what was Fred in jail for previously? Wasn't one of them? It was car tax fraud. Was it one of them?
And tyre theft, yeah. So you're stealing tyres and
stupid crimes, yeah.
He also did get his 13-year-old sister pregnant, which is a worse crime than tyre theft. But he didn't he didn't go to jail for that. He got away with it. So sums up the legal system, doesn't it?
Anyway, so Rena was registered as a missing person. There was an appeal to find her after her disappearance. We can have a look at the missing person poster that was circulated.
Yeah,
you can do the picture, please.
There's a big clue in the poster. Let's have a look at the poster, and we'll see. So Rena is missing, and the missing person's poster was
with that blonde. It looks like an albino.
Oh, I wonder where Rena could be. Who got rid of Rena?
Missing, can you out? He looks quite clean cut there, doesn't he, Fred?
He was a good-looking man in his younger days.
Yeah.
So yeah. So basically telling you who did it.
January 1972, Fred and Rose got married. The happy couple then planned to move from their Midland Road flat into a bigger property. The house needed to be large enough for them to bring up their family, and also needed space for Rose to work as a prostitute. Fred soon found the perfect property, 25 Cromwell Street, a three-storey semi-detached property with a cellar. There was enough space for the family, plus Rose could bring customers there. She was on the game, plus they could rent rooms to lodgers to help with household expenses. Shortly after the Wests moved in, they took in two lodgers, 18-year-old Benjamin Stannarland and 18-year-old Alan Davis. It's not the same one that
It was. It is the one. It was the same Alan Davis with curly hair. He lived with the Wests. Dion QI and Jonathan Creek. It's that guy.
So on the evening that the two guys moved in, Fred and Rose took them out for a drink. Openly talked to them about sex all evening. When they returned to the house that evening, Rose had sex with both of them. Didn't mind. More than likely pleasured himself whilst watching.
Yeah, gross. Benjamin Stanland he recently committed suicide, so obviously something he no doubt had flashbacks of that night, and it was too much for him. So it just shows you what sort of woman Rose was. Up for anything.
And so yeah, the next victim is Caroline Owens. If you could go to the next picture, please.
Yeah. God, he liked a bird with a dodgy hairdo, didn't he?
It was the 70s, though, isn't it? Everyone had dodgy hairdos. No doubt, if he committed his crimes mainly in the 80s, he would probably be partial to a mullet, wouldn't he? But, or a poodle perm.
That should be like a special forensic dating victims by their fashion. Anyway, in November 1972, West met 15-year-old Caroline Owens. She said that she had an unhappy home life, was looking for a job and somewhere to live. And Rose asked Caroline to come and live with them, so that she could look after their children. They had 4 kids by then. Caroline took them up on their offer and moved into 25 Cromwell Street. For a short period of time, it became apparent that Fred was sex mad, talked about sex all the time. One evening, he told Caroline that he carried out medical operations, including abortions. This led on to comments about Anna Marie, Fred claiming that his daughter had already lost her virginity. Caroline was astonished to hear this, as Anna Marie was only 8 years old at the time. He asked Fred what he meant. Fred detected disgust in Caroline's response. So he said this happened as a result of a cycling accident, rather than an act carried out by a man.
It's difficult to get your head round this cycling accident, how this could have happened. Slipped on the handlebars or something, I'm not sure, but anyway.
So over time, Caroline got pissed off with the Wests. She didn't like Fred and his constant sex talk. Rose kept making lesbian advances to her. She wasn't into. Caroline decided to leave the house. But
Lesers, yeah. Anyway.
1994 drew Fred's confession to the police. Said that after this, he and Rose decided to abduct Caroline. They knew her routine and where she would be after visiting boyfriend of an evening. It also said that this was a test to see if Rose could help to abduct a girl. The plan was put into operation 6th of December 1972. Earlier that day, Caroline was walking in Barton Street, Gloucester. She saw Fred and Rose driving the grey Ford Popular. In retrospect, it appears that they were stalking her. At 10:30 that evening, Fred and Rose saw Caroline hitchhiking and pulled up to give her a lift. Caroline accepted the lift and got into the back seat of the car. Rose then joined her in the back seat to have a girl chat. During the journey, Fred and Rose started talking about sex, and Rose started to feel up Caroline, much to her objection. Drove to a quiet road, and Fred pulled the car over, and he turned around on his seat to face Caroline, punched her in the head several times until she was knocked out. When Caroline regained consciousness, she found herself still in the back seat of the car, with her hands bound behind her back with a scarf. Rose was holding her, and Fred was winding brown adhesive tape around her head, gagging her. Caroline said, "My reaction was terror and panic. I couldn't open my mouth even if I tried. I was forced to breathe through her nose." She was then taken back to 25 Cromwell Street. She was taken to an upstairs room where she was tied up, blindfolded and gagged. She was then sexually assaulted by Fred and Rose and beaten with the buckle end of a belt. Rose performed oral sex on her while Fred had sex with Rose from behind. Rose was carrying out more of the assault than Fred. Rose briefly left the room, leaving Fred and Caroline together. Fred then raped Caroline and begged her not to tell Rose, and he started crying. Fred and Rose finally exhausted themselves and fell asleep. Caroline then tried to escape through a window, but was unable to do so, as her hands were tied. At about 7 in the morning, there was a knock at the front door of the house. Fred let the visitor in, bringing him to a room quite near to where Caroline was being held. He could hear voices and tried to make a noise to draw the man's attention. Rose placed a pillow over her head to smother her. When the visitor had gone, Fred came back into the room and was angry. He said, "I'll keep you in the cellar and let my friends have you. When we've finished, we'll kill you and bury you under the paving stones of Gloucester. Hundreds of girls are buried there," he added, "and nobody will ever find you." In the morning, Fred said he was sorry for what happened and that it was Rose's idea that they get her. He started crying again and said she had been brought to the house for Rose's pleasure. He asked Caroline if she would forgive them and come back to and work as their nanny. I knew that the only chance she had of survival was to pretend to agree to do this. He helped Fred and Rose clean up the house, played with their children, had 3 hot baths to get rid of the brown marks left on her face by the masking tape. They all left the house together to go to the laundrette. It was then that Caroline left the couple, telling Rose she would see her tomorrow. Caroline got back to her home in Cinderford. Mother Elizabeth noticed the bruising on her daughter's face. Caroline eventually told her what happened, and Elizabeth contacted the police. Detectives went to Cromwell Street and confronted Fred and Rose about the assault. When DC Kevin Price asked if the allegations were true, Rose replied, "Don't be fucking stupid. What do you think I am?" He then searched the car and found a
some sort of monster.
Alaska.
Yeah. I've finally found out that Scottish thing. So basically, young schoolgirl of 11 years old, Moira Anderson, went missing. So you've got 2 other you've got someone called Alexander Garth Shaw, who Alexander Garth Shaw's daughter thinks that he had something to do with it because he once confessed to her that police had questioned him over 122 sex attacks on children before he left Scotland for Leeds in 1965. So Garth Shaw was friends with someone called James Gologly, who lived on the same street in Coatbridge as Fred West and Rena. So before he died in Peterhead Prison, Gologly claimed that he, Garth Shaw and West had been members of a paedophile ring, although a dossier containing names of senior establishment figures was later found to be a hoax. So then he also claimed that he and Garth Shaw and another man had been involved in Moira's murder, although the third man was not West, as he was still in England at the time. So there's all sorts of things. So author Howard Soons, which is the book that you read, isn't it?
So, yeah, it's a good book.
Said West used to boast darkly of having a Scottish connection, thought to be a reference to friends who could help him dispose of bodies. He said, chronologically, it's interesting because directly after he comes back to England, we know he starts killing people and cutting their bodies into pieces before burying them. So that's the possible link with other people.
It was so long ago, though. It's so long ago. The people involved are dead, and also the burial sites, if they are now covered in concrete, so it will never get to the bottom of it. Yeah. But I do recommend, though, the book by Howard Soos is a good book if anyone's interested, and also on YouTube he's he recorded a lot of interviews at the time, and they're all on YouTube. So look up his interviews if you're interested.
Interviews are very interesting when he talks about the ghosts.
Oh, the Fred West interviews are fucked up, but they're worth a listen as well if you like a good laugh. But yeah. Anyway, carry on, Dom.
As Damien says, it always amazes me how these people find each other, especially before the internet. Must be some debauched places around.
Yeah, it's the way they look, isn't it? They got that look about them.
Yeah.
Give you the nod. Yes.
So, anyway, to Caroline. Police then searched the car and found a button off Caroline's coat. They searched the house and found a partially used roll of masking tape, a collection of pornographic photographs. Then Rose were arrested to press rape charges. Of men that Caroline Owens would have had to give evidence in court. She did not want to go through this. It was agreed that the West would be charged with the less offence of assault. 12th of January 1973, the case was heard at Gloucester Magistrates Court. It was 31 years old and was used to the criminal justice procedure. This was Rose's first court appearance. She was 19 and had just found out that she was pregnant again. Both charged with actual bodily harm and indecent assault. Key witnesses to stand against them, the West practically got off with the assault. Fined £25 each for the charge and allowed to walk free. That's
not hard, is it?
What's £25 in today's money?
Well,
then it's still probably like $1,000 or something. But it's, it's still not that much.
Girl he murdered.
It's not barred for practically killing someone, is it? If you try and murder someone, you expect to do a 10 or 20 stretch, but 25 quid. Yeah, all right.
Did you hear about the African girl he murdered?
Alaska.
Yeah, apparently you can't get it done for blackberry in there, can
you?
Booty.
Jamaica. Anyway, Jamaica. Anyway, go on. Jamaica, Alaska, endorse it. Yeah, we'll find some more.
When Caroline heard about the verdict, she was bitterly disappointed and attempted to commit suicide shortly afterwards. Did not die. After the trial, it dawned on Fred and Rose that they had been lucky to get away with this. After abducting and raping Caroline, letting her go was a potentially disastrous decision. It might not be so lucky next time. The next girl would have to be killed. And
wow.
Go back over to Ian with the next girl.
Yeah, so Caroline is dead now. She didn't commit suicide, but she just died of natural causes. But yeah, so she got out alive, one of the few. So
what the politicians need to do, they all need to come together and abolish dying by natural causes.
Ban it, just ban it.
Anyway, so yeah. So yeah, when you have an actual living victim of the West like that, then you know actually what's involved, what the things they got up to. And obviously, if a dead person, they kill the person as they did with most of their victims. Then obviously you can't find out from them what was involved. But a good idea of this kind of hell that they were put through. All right, let's move on anyway to the next victim. If you go on to the next picture there, please, if you could, Hemi, just put the next one up. Picture number 7.
I found some more. So Garth Shaw was a bus driver that used to nonce kids, and apparently he was driving the bus that Moira was on. That young girl that apparently they
Moira.
murdered.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, then put the next picture up. We'll look at Linda Goff. This is the next victim of the West. So go to picture number 7.
Nana Muscuri look alike. Those Nana Muscuri glasses are.
Yeah.
I believe they call them problem glasses now.
After Caroline Owens had left the West, there was a room available for rent at 25 Cromwell Street. Lodger Benjamin Staniland had started bringing his 16-year-old girlfriend Linda Goff to the house, and she became friendly with Fred and Rose. They suggested that Linda step in and come and live with them to look after the children. In April 1973, Linda moved into Cromwell Street and became involved in a sexual relationship with Fred and Rose.
Didn't they find a body right under the back door?
They found bodies
It was a step
everywhere. Oh, right, okay. Right. They find a body in the back door. Alaska. Right, okay. And we'll stop saying that soon.
They found a body behind the sofa, didn't they? It was the Irish side and Sikh champion.
Jamaica. Irish side.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. Initially, Linda may have been willing to get involved in Fred and Rose's sex games, but they went too far beyond what she had expected, beyond the abuse that Caroline Owens had suffered. During one such sex session, Linda was gagged with brown adhesive tape, which was wrapped around her head to stop her from screaming.
Oh,
form of gagging.
Breaking news,
Yeah.
New evidence has come to light. I thought the woman next door would be distraught her husband had suddenly left in the middle of the night, but the next morning there she was building a new patio. Like Fred West, I never promised you a garden, Rose.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Right, anyway, okay. Okay, so this form of gagging was an extreme form of sadomasochism which Fred and Rose found sexually exciting. She was then tied up and tortured to see how much pain she could endure. Linda either died during this sexual torture or was murdered because Fred and Rose could not afford to let her go after what they had done to her, and certainly did not want her to give her the chance to go to the police as they had with Caroline Owens. When Linda was finally dead, the West turned to the job of covering up their crime. Fred dismembered the body and disposed of it in an inspection pit that he had in his garage at the rear of the house. So, yeah. Exactly.
I'm just having a look through Fred West Patio's Twitter. It's someone called Lee Kenny's did a tweet. He said, sacking Solskjaer and then putting Carrick in charge. It's like getting rid of Fred West as your babysitter and then letting Rose West take over. Club is a fucking shambles from top to bottom.
Carrick won his first game, so...
Dead cat bounce.
Anyway,
Dead cat bounce.
clean sheet. So... And he played Sancho and Van der Beek as well, and that was what Solskjaer wouldn't do, so... Yeah. Don't think it was a bad move, but anyway. 3 weeks later, Linda's mother turned up at 25 Cromwell Street and asked Fred and Rose about their daughter's whereabouts. At first, they were reluctant to admit knowing anything about her. Then, Mrs. Goff noticed that Rose was wearing her daughter's slippers. When she pointed this out, Rose admitted that Linda had stayed with them briefly, but had now gone. Mrs. Goff also noticed that some of Linda's clothes were hanging on the West's washing line. Rose said that she had left them behind. They said that Linda had been looking after Anne-Marie, but hit the child so hard that they had to let her leave. The fate of Linda Goff would not be discovered until 21 years later, when her remains were dug up during the Cromwell Street excavations. So Rose would kill, or Fred and Rose would kill the victim. They wouldn't let anything go to waste. They think, oh, they're good slippers she's got. We'll have those and wear them. So.
You seen that meme, Motor Fred, Ace with Spades.
We can upload that one. But anyway.
Yeah.
Keep that one to one side. We'll upload that for the viewers. Anyway, let's just move on to the next victim then. Caroline Cooper. To the next picture, if you may.
God done it.
Picture number 8. We're going to overrun 9, but we did start late, so I think we're allowed to tonight. On the 10th of November 1973, 15-year-old Caroline Cooper was having a night out with friends in Gloucester. She boarded the number 15 bus at 9:15 p.m. that night and was never seen again. It is not known for sure how she vanished, but her remains were found buried in the cellar at 25 Cromwell Street over 20 years later. No doubt Fred and Rose had offered her a lift on the night that she disappeared. Can be deduced by the condition of her remains was that surgical tape had been wrapped around the girl's head and her limbs were bound with cord. It is likely that she would have been taken to the cellar beneath 25 Cromwell Street and suspended from the ceiling, then suffered a series of sadomasochistic perversions at the hands of Fred and Rose. She eventually died, probably by suffocation or strangulation, either as a result of what had been done to her or because Fred and Rose could not risk setting her free. So, yeah. Picking up momentum here. Picking up hitchhikers. You don't see hitchhikers anymore. What happened? Used to be all the rage, didn't it, in the 70s?
Yeah, I think they've kind of realised that it's quite linked to murder and serial.
That's just... I actually have done it.
Out the link.
We did do it, actually.
I've picked up hitchhikers and I haven't murdered one yet.
I've not picked one up, but...
Well, I'm a lorry driver now. I have a quota system.
Yeah, you know, it's part of the job.
I did hitchhike. I hitchhiked.
Drivers, they're allowed 12 murders a year and moves up to 36 with extra training.
I was in Chippenham in the West Country, and I did hitchhike from Chippenham to London, and it would have been around this time, so I was lucky, actually, to get away with that. But I did get picked up by a guy that worked for the Daily Mail, and he took me all the way to London. So, anyway, I was one of the lucky ones. So, yeah, let's move on to the next picture. What we'll do, we'll look at the next victim, Lucy Partington. Let's go on to the next picture there.
Well, you don't know, Ian. He might have written a hit piece about you. Hitchhiker terrorised me all the way back to London.
Well, I'll tell you what, he was doing 90 from all the way from the West Country to London, and I could have, he was breaking the speed limit all the way.
He was terrified for his life, that's why.
Well, he was breaking the law. So if he made a wrong move, I would have grassed him up anyway. Anyway, okay then. So, on the 27th of December 1973, 21-year-old university student Lucy Partington went missing near her home in Cheltenham. It is understood that she would have been waiting at a bus stop on the A435 Trunk Road, which is a route that was used by Fred and Rose when travelling between Gloucester and Bishop's Cleeve. They often visited the village, especially during the Christmas week, and were probably driving as a family group with their children when they saw Lucy and picked her up. Lucy probably wouldn't have accepted a lift from a lone man, but it was a family. She would have no fear accepting a lift from them. Interestingly, Ruth Owens, a friend of Lucy's, said that she was frightened a few years earlier when a man fitting Fred's description tried to lure her into his car.
Talk about?
Yeah.
Yeah, her cousin's Martin Amis, the writer. Is he a writer or something? Is he? Yeah.
Martin
Amis, the writer, is her cousin.
Yeah. Well, Lucy would have gone through a similar ordeal to that of Caroline Owens. Evidence showed that Lucy may have been held captive in the cellar of 25 Cromwell Street for anything up to 7 days and be used as a sexual plaything for the Wests for this period. The evidence for this was that Fred walked into casualty unit of Gloucester Royal Hospital with a serious laceration to his right hand on the morning of the 3rd of January 1974. What had he been doing during the night that could have caused such an injury? Most likely, dismembering Lucy's body. Lucy's remains were discovered under the cellar in 1994. There was also a knife in the grave with her, probably the one that Fred had cut his hand with, without dropping it in after inflicting the wound upon himself. So yeah, You know, the timelines add up when you know what happened. There were now remains of 2 bodies in the cellar of 25 Cromwell Street and a third in the inspection pit at the rear of the house, all victims of Fred and Rose's lust. They were still not satisfied. So, yeah.
I'm starting to think this guy's a real knucklehead.
Well, yeah, I think he's more than a knucklehead, isn't he?
Who do you think was the driver? Because as we know, like Glasgow, he possibly murdered somebody, possibly didn't. Comes down south, meets up with Rose, and then starts fucking murdering like there's no tomorrow. I mean, who was the real driver of the murders? It does make you wonder.
Well, I think the general vibe is that Fred had always been fucked up.
Yeah.
He had murdered before he met Rose.
Oh shit, yeah, because he murdered Rena, didn't he?
Yeah, he was into murder. You know, he didn't. Yeah. He was sort of basically, and that goes back to his father, who basically told him that if you can get away with it, then do it. You know. Yeah. That was the attitude, which is, you know, if you can get away with it, do it. So yeah, if you can get away with murder, do it.
I don't think either of them was under the influence of the other, weren't they? They're both equally.
Well, initially, Fred, Rose hadn't murdered. I wouldn't have thought before she'd met Fred, but
regular sex.
She had it in her. She had it in her.
Having regular sex with your dad doesn't make you a well-rounded person, does it?
Yeah. Fred would have, you know, got Rose into murder, and then she probably thought, well, yeah, this is all right. Yeah. And then she became more into murder than he did as time went on. But yeah, so
is it like one of those things, you know when you have like a hobby and then you introduce your missus to it and then she ruins it, and that's what it was.
Exactly, and she gets into it more than you are. But
yeah. And then you're like,
by the way,
hold on a minute, this was my hobby. What are you doing?
The way this was all well before Fred got into the whole Westboro Baptist Church thing, which he founded, by the way.
Westboro Baptist Church.
God hates fags.
It's the original idea of the West Wing. Was that Fred West? Was it that started?
Yep, him again.
Yeah.
Should we go on to his next victim?
Was Fred West in the original lineup of Westlife?
Yeah, of course he was.
Was he the one that got thrown out before they got famous?
Yeah, he did that on purpose to protect his crimes.
Anyway, Dom, over to you for some more info.
The next one was, I don't know if I'm saying this right. As far as I can see, it's Therese Siegenthaler.
I'll ask her.
Tim Westwood, the DJ.
Was he turned on by really dodgy glasses? He seems like a bird who's a bit short-sighted, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it was a thing at the time. Yeah, it was, well, April 19...
That reminds me. You ever heard the joke about the woman goes to have her eyes checked, and he does the chart. He's doing it. Can you see anything? No. So he changed the lenses. Can you see anything? No. So he's changing all the lenses. Tried all the lenses. She can't see nothing. So exasperated, he gets his knob out and sticks it in her face. He said, "Can you see that?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, I see. You're cockeyed."
Anyway, he's a single. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Smith. We'll just call it, for the purposes of this, we'll call her Smith.
21-year-old student Smith attended a party in South London. The next day, left hitchhiked to Holyhead, North Wales.
I believe that's pronounced
You prepared. Yes. As you prepared for her journey,
he's going. Ian.
Are you sure?
This is going off.
Are you sure it wasn't West? Are you sure it wasn't West Wales?
Exactly, yeah.
He's going.
So
He's
that's
going
where-
off the rails, Ian. He's wobbling.
That's the idea. That's what the viewers like, though, isn't it? That's why they tune in.
My wife's moving to America, Dom.
Yeah, fuck off.
As she prepared for her journey and warned her about the perils of hitchhiking, but she took no notice. It was on this journey that she would have been picked up by Fred and Rose. In his police interviews, Fred referred to her as the Dutch girl. She was in fact German.
Based Fred. He's not racist, he just don't like
Was she from West Germany?
From West Germany, which was founded by Fred West.
I'm proud of that one, actually.
Based Fred weren't racist, he just didn't like him, did he?
Therese was gagged with a scarf, her arms and legs were bound with a rope, and she was raped. She cut up the body and cut off her head to make sure she was dead.
Pissed all over the ceiling.
Her remains buried in a hole in the cellar, and Fred built a false chimney breast over the grave.
Sure there's a joke in there somewhere. Did she die of flu?
That'll do.
Well, that's clever, though, isn't it? You would build a chimney over the dead body. That's
That's determined.
Yeah.
The next one is Shirley Hubbard.
You can't say Fred weren't a grafter, can you?
Yeah, if you could do the next picture, this is Shirley Hubbard.
Oh, blimey, she was young.
Yeah.
Fred, like young. Jailbait.
On the 14th of November 1974, 15-year-old Shirley Hubbard disappeared. She was last seen at 9:30 p.m. on that day getting on the bus in her boyfriend. Hang on. Worcester, because it's in America.
Worcester. Not
No,
Alaska.
it's in England. It's in England, isn't it? So it's Worcester.
Alaska.
Yeah. Anyway,
Dorset.
it is not known how not known how Shirley came into the clutches of the Wests. She was not acquainted with them and had no connection with Cromwell Street. Probably picked up at a bus stop and taken to Cromwell Street. She became a toy for Fred and Rose's sexual games. Search for excitement, Fred and Rose would have subjected her to an extreme form of bondage. Wrapped around her head 11 or 12 times. Tape around her head 11 or 12 times. Tube was inserted into her nose. Once the victim had been tortured and killed, she was cut up and buried in the cellar. Things are now getting out of hand, and several people, including children and lodgers, continue to live at 25 Cromwell Street as all this mayhem was going on. Number 25 is in a particularly dark part of the street. It seems odd that no one ever noticed young girls being forcibly bundled into the house without kicking and struggling to get away. Someone saw women's clothes being burnt on the bonfire, as they probably were. Strange items of jewellery appearing in the house. The only complaint by lodgers was of a slight fusty smell of bangings and crashings in the cellar late at night. In retrospect, it is all too clear what those noises were.
A fusty smell going on there, eh? Decomposing bodies, stinking the house out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ultimate giveaway, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure. I remember we had a dead cat in the attic once, and that did smell a bit. And, but anyway, okay then. So there you go. Let's just move on to the next picture then, Hemi. I'll take over the controls now. We'll just run over basically the home straight of the murders and go to the next picture, and we'll look at Juanita Mott, which is the next victim. The 12th of April 1975, 18-year-old Juanita Mott was hitchhiking on the B4 215 road between Muchmarcle and Gloucester. Juanita was known to the Wests, and she had lodged at 25 Cromwell Street in the past. Fred and Rose were familiar with her habits and would have known the places where she would have picked up lifts. They were probably waiting for her and gave her a lift. Back at Cromwell Street, Juanita was gagged and tied with plastic-covered rope, the type used for washing lines.
Cats in attics is how these things start.
Yeah. That's right. So, she was then suspended by the neck from a beam in the cellar using a hangman's noose. This would have restricted Juanita's breathing, which was part of extreme bondage.
Restricts breathing, who would have known?
Yep. And Fred and Rose would have found this exciting, and this would have probably led to the victim's death. So yeah, people are into this. I think Michael Hutchins, wasn't it? He was doing this.
Yeah, and
in the Sydney hotel room.
David Carradine was into that as well, wasn't
he? Found hanging from the door.
And a couple of conservative politicians.
Yeah, an apple in the mouth or something, wasn't it?
Apple in the mouth.
However, it is possible that Juanita was killed by a blow to the back of the head with an implement like a ball-headed hammer. There was an unusual fracture at the base of the skull suggesting this, but also it could have been done when Fred was dissecting the body. Head was removed, and the rest of the body was chopped to pieces and buried into a 4-foot hole below the cellar floor. So there you go. Getting into a routine now, Fred is. Go on to the next picture. Let's look at the next victim, which is Shirley Ann Robinson. So go to the next one there, please, Hemi.
Wow, she's a beaut, isn't she?
Let's have a look.
I wonder if our mate's going to watch this one. Is that
that one's in colour. 1977, bisexual 18-year-old Shirley Ann Robinson moved into 25 Cromwell Street.
If she can't get it, she buys it.
The best of both worlds. So
she likes women as much as the next fella.
If she was a white bear, she'd be bipolar. So anyway, tumbleweeds go by. All right, Alaska then. Back to Alaska, yeah?
Yeah, Alaska.
Get off that joke. We'll find a new joke one day.
We've got to endorse it now, haven't we?
I didn't endorse it. That didn't really work, though. It's a bit more complicated, that one.
Yeah.
Think that one through more. But anyway, okay, so she became friendly with Fred and Rose, and a menage a trois then developed between the three of them, much to the West's delight, and eventually she became pregnant with Fred's child.
Ooh.
This made Rose jealous, and Shirley was increasingly driving Fred and Rose apart. Baby was due on the 11th of June, 1978. She went for a checkup with her GP on the 2nd of May, 1978. On the 9th of May, 1979, she had some photos taken with a fellow Cromwell Street lodger at a Woolworths Photo Me booth. This was the last time that she was seen alive. The West murdered Shirley.
That's the thing. She says fellow lodger. So there's all these people lodging there, and then someone disappeared, and they're like, "Oh, well, they've just done a bunk."
Well, it's bedsit land, isn't it? People come and go. You got students staying there. You know, they come there for the term.
Cromwell Street's 3-story, isn't it?
It was 3 stories. Well, 4 including the cellar, but yeah, 3 stories above ground. Yeah. You know, we've all been there in our youth, living in these places, living in your bedsit, getting pissed up, and smoking doobies with your flatmate, and then
a serial killer's basement.
Yeah, being late for lectures,
hose instead, weren't he?
In the days where going to college was free, you could have a right laugh. Anyway, not all debt like it is now. But yeah, okay then. So, the West murdered Shirley before she gave birth to her child, probably strangling her to death. She was a threat to their relationship. Whether it was Fred...
Yul Brynner's character in Westworld was based on Fred West.
Yeah.
Exactly. Also, brother Adam West was the best Batman.
And in fact, not only that, but Westworld itself was a theme park based on what would it be like to be Fred West and murder anyone you want and shag them.
And all cowboy movies, which are called westerns, were based on Fred West.
Song, Fred Sitland.
Oh dear, we're good, aren't we?
Wasn't Fred,
Daniela Westbrook. Daniela Westbrook. We can get something out.
Yeah.
Wasn't Fred the original third member of Right Said Fred?
No.
Fred was the founding father of Westlife.
I've done that one, I bet.
I'm not here all night. I'm going to bed soon after.
The West End of London. There's Anyway, okay then.
Oh, apparently Drop Dead Fred started off as a biopic of Fred West, but they decided to make it a children's film instead.
Anyway, okay. All right. Anyway, whether it was Fred or Rose who actually throttled Shirley is unknown. The cellar of 25 Cromwell Street was now full of human remains, so Shirley's body was hacked up by Fred and buried in the back garden along with the unborn fetus, as she was 8 months pregnant at the time. Shirley's remains showed no evidence that she had endured sexual torture like many of the other West victims, which suggested that they simply just wanted to get rid of her.
I think that suggests Rose then, doesn't it?
Rose was probably involved, yeah. The West told other lodgers...
She was jealous. She was jealous, and it was just a dispatch. So it just seems to me that...
Yeah.
I think Rose did those kind of crimes, didn't she? She
knifed her, yeah.
She did the impulsive murders, didn't she?
She was into the bondage stuff as well. She liked the, the torture. The West told other lodgers that Shirley had gone to live with her family back in Germany and probably wasn't coming back. Another one bites the dust. Okay.
What did he have against the Germans? Blimey, he was waging a regular World War II in Cromwell Street, weren't he? The amount of Krauts he killed more Krauts than Bomber Harris, didn't he?
Anyway, let's go into the next picture. And the next victim, Alison Chambers. There she is. Oh, anyway. Alison Chambers was a troubled teenager from Swansea. In her youth, she was placed in Jordan's Brook Children's Home in Gloucester, and it was during this time that she became friendly with Fred and Rose West. From what can be deduced, she moved to 25 Cromwell Street 4 weeks before her 17th birthday to look after the West's children. She probably began a sexual relationship with Fred and Rose. The sex soon became frightening. One day the West gagged her with a belt 3/4 of an inch wide. Unable to scream, she was raped, tortured, and finally killed, just like the other girls.
The obvious group that Fred inspired, Stabbing Westwood.
That's right. Alison was most certainly dismembered, and Fred buried her in a hole in the garden next to the wall of a recently built bathroom extension. So there you go. That's what
Did he give her a
was
tap
becoming
on the head?
routine by this
Did he give her a
point.
tap on the head, did he? Yeah.
Yep. West.
I think the moral of that story is never accept a threesome with an older couple.
No good deed goes unpunished. I think that's the...
Pretty good. Anyway, okay then.
I'll look after your kids. This job seems to get easier every day.
So what we'll do then, if anyone has anyone got any more West type jokes or West, I'm trying to think of some. I've run out actually. I haven't quite hit a wall, which is unlike me. I can normally come up with these things, but
was the Wild West about Fred's teenage years?
We sort of covered that. I mean, I said Western, so it's sort of like yeah. Anyway, okay then. If no one's got anything, let's go over to Dom, who's going to tell us about the final murder.
Heather West.
Of the West. Let's
Possibly
go for it.
the
You,
final
Dom.
murder.
There is a picture.
Here we go.
So did Fred and Rose murder all of the children that weren't Fred and Rose's? Or did they murder any of Fred and Rose's? Or did she just kill all the stepchildren?
We're about to find out.
Okay.
Listen and learn.
Okay.
Yeah, there's just Fred and Rose didn't draw the line at performing extreme sex on young women they had abducted and killed. They also sexually and violently abused their own children, subjecting them to a life of misery. In May 1987, eldest child Heather left school and was applying for jobs. It was during this time that Fred and Rose murdered her, fearing that Heather was telling other people of the abuse she was enduring. They would have been in the house alone with Fred and Rose when an argument broke out between them. It started with Fred trying to rape Heather. Rose later told a neighbour that there had been a hell of a row. He admitted to strangling Heather to death, cut up and decapitated the body, and put the parts in the bin bags and stored them in black bags overnight in a dustbin under the stairs. When the other West children asked where Heather had gone, and Rose told them that she had moved away and work in a holiday camp. Then dug a hole in the...
Didn't happen now because they could have said, she's gone to live with Harry Potter.
She'd gone through the station thing.
Yeah, 9 3/4.
Anyway, Fred dug a hole in the garden with the assistance of his son Steve, saying that he was building a fish pond. A few days later, Steve noticed that the fish pond hole that his father dig had been filled in. He said that he had changed his mind about the pond. Steve now knows that he unwittingly helped to bury his own sister.
Wool was pulled over his eyes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, anyway, in 1992, West were investigated by police over child abuse rumours. West was then charged with child sexual offences. With 3 counts of rape, 1 count of buggery, those with child cruelty, inciting a husband to engage in sex with their daughter. Unfortunately, the trial didn't proceed. Witnesses refused to give evidence at the last minute and the case was dropped. West walked free. However, the 5 youngest children out of 8 came into care for their own protection. Authorities were concerned about their eldest daughter, Heather, who was missing. The youngest children in care, social workers began to notice that they joked among themselves about Heather being buried in the garden of 25 Cromwell Street. The 24th of February 1994, after further investigations, police turned up at the West House with a search warrant to dig up the garden.
Yeah, I remember this. I remember this I remember the story unfolding at the time because I remember the story distinctly. The one where they said police have started digging in the garden to find missing daughter Heather, I remember the early reports, and then it unfolded. And oh look, we found another one. Oh, and another one. And another, and more, and more. Weren't it? That's the way it unfolded, weren't it?
I was living abroad at the time, and I wasn't really that aware of it. And then when I remember, I came back about a year afterwards, and I met my dad for the first time in a while, and he said to me, "Did you hear about that guy in Gloucester?" The first thing he said to me was that. I was
just doing my A levels at that point.
Jim Cook's in the chat. He says, "Worst lucky dip ever."
Anyway, okay, then what we'll do, we can pretty much tie it up now. What we'll do, hang on a minute, I'll just have a swig of the old lager and lime. Lager and lime.
Well,
yeah, shot of lime in the cheaper lagers.
Is it time for me to derail this topic of Fred West and all that? Because I think I've got an interesting anecdote, unrelated to murder and all that.
What we'll do, we'll just tie this up a bit more.
Yeah, sure.
And then we'll because we can overrun tonight anyway because Hemi was on the road, so we'll just finish it off. So anyway, as excavations proceeded in the West Gardens, body parts began to be discovered. The game was up for the Wests, and Fred had no option other than to admit that he had murdered a number of young women. Initially, he took all the blame, and he said that Rose had not been involved. Rose told police she knew nothing of the murders and was believed in the beginning. As investigations proceeded, it became apparent that Rose was involved, and Fred eventually told police she was involved. On New Year's Day, 1995, Fred was discovered dead in his prison cell. Though he was on suicide watch, he managed to hang himself, and
that was a successful
faced with Here we go. Ace of Spades.
Right up there with Jeffrey Epstein. That was
Ace was spending the rest of his life in prison on the nonces wing. This was the easiest way out for Fred. Rose went to court. Was that Dom?
I was going to say, I think Jeffrey Epstein killed Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer killed Fred West.
Yep. So anyway, Rose went to court and was found guilty on 10 of the murders. She continued to plead her innocence and still denies being involved to this day. Oh, she will die in prison. 25 Cromwell Street no longer exists, as it was demolished in 1996 due to its infamous history. So, okay, so pretty much tied it up there. We're going to just cover a few loose ends at the end, though. Let's just quickly look at Fred West's brother, John West. After Fred West had been arrested, he was spilling the beans about his and Rose's crimes. He also said that his brother John also slaughtered people. John was subsequently charged.
Oh no. You're not telling me the secret ingredient in John West's mackerel sauce is people.
Yeah.
He was charged with the sexual abuse of 2 minors, including Fred's daughter Anne-Marie. John committed suicide during his trial, so Fred and John and one of their lodgers both committed suicide.
Well,
Rose also tried to commit suicide.
I say incest is a game the whole family can play, don't they?
Yeah. All right, then, so pretty much covered that. So recent investigations, though all this happened over 25 years ago, the case will not go away. And earlier this year, investigations took place to search for more victims of the Wests. So let's just have a quick run through of these whilst we're there. Let's have a look. Mary Bastholm. On the 15th of January 1968, 15-year-old Mary Bastholm was seen for the last time at a bus stop in Bristol Road, Gloucester. At the time, Mary had a job at the Popping Cafe in Gloucester, which was a cafe frequented by Fred West. Fred was employed to carry out work in the basement toilet conversion when Mary disappeared. A major part of the conversion was to lay a concrete floor, and Fred had got to know Mary. She had been seen in Fred's car on more than one occasion. So, after Fred's arrest in 1994, he admitted that he had killed Mary, but he had killed himself before he could give more details about the murder. In 1994, the then tenant of the cafe reported to police that he had found an exercise book belonging to Mary behind some brickwork in the toilet area of the cafe. So it was looking like, you don't have to be a genius to put two and two together here. It took up to May this year for police to finally carry out investigations at the premises, which is still a cafe. Initial findings were poor, but it was decided to stop the investigation and not completely dig up the floor, which could have been a costly waste of time if no body was discovered. They did, and there wasn't much discovered, so excavations that they had already carried out at the cafe had cost 55 grand already, taxpayers' money. So, the thing with this is,
why didn't they get Baldrick on the job? He would have done it, wouldn't he?
The thing is, though, Fred is dead, Rose is in prison.
Dead, baby.
So what have they got to gain out of this anyway? Yeah, right, maybe there's a body there. So what?
But did you know, just outside the town of Lavington is a village called West Lavington, and that was formed when Ed was in Lavington, and he had to move just outside to go for a shit. Thus was formed West Lavington.
I'm not sure about that, Alaska.
Yeah. Endorse it.
Yep. Anyway, okay. Just go on to the next picture there, Hemi. We'll quickly look at the last bits of this case. Probably another 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. Go to the next picture. Yeah. Berkeley Farm.
Ooh.
That's the previous picture. Anyway, it is believed as many as 20 more victims may be buried at an abandoned farm on the outskirts of Berkeley, Gloucester. Here's the farm there. Trevor MacDonald, who's in the picture, visited the site in an ITV documentary earlier this year, and it is a popular location for urban explorers. The trustees of the farm were not allowed investigation teams to search the area, meaning that police would have to go there to get legal access to the site. And again, it's a case of, it's going to cost a lot of money to dig for victims, and we're going to pay for that through our taxes.
You ain't going to be able to.
Does it go to the NHS? Does it go to look for Fred West's victims? Who decide?
Victims, without a doubt. We don't need any more
to be honest,
videos from nurses, do we?
At least we've stopped clapping for the NHS.
Yeah.
Go to the next picture, please, Hemi. Let's pretty much.
Can we clap for the gum clinic, though?
Can we clap for the VD clinic?
What's on the end of the stick, Vic?
You wouldn't let it lie. You wouldn't let it lie. Anyway.
Spin, spin, spin the wheel of justice.
Wouldn't think it by his comical demeanour, but comedian Vic Reeves is connected to the case. So here we go. There's Vic Reeves on his big night out, which we all liked.
Yeah.
All liked as a student. Okay, let's go to the next.
What do you say when you see a man with a stick, Vic?
What's on the end of the stick, Vic?
Yeah.
A bit like talcum powder and turnip. I thought that was the funniest. Talcum powder and turnip.
He hasn't got the chives out, has he?
Yeah. Go to the next picture. Let's have a quick look at this. There you go.
He must have looked like a right puffer back in the day then.
There we go there. So anyway, in 1979, 20-year-old future comedian Vic Reeves was hitchhiking home from the Glastonbury Festival with a friend when Fred and Rose pulled up and gave them a lift. Reeves said I had long hair in those days, which came in useful for getting lifts because I could turn my back and pretend to be a girl.
That's
how I
came
to be.
Is it? That's not a good thing.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Really, that's how I came.
What if the Ripper had come up behind him?
Well, again, is
chance then, would he?
All right, you get picked up. A, you get picked up, which is a good thing. B, you get picked up by the Ripper, which is a bad thing.
There was a serial killer that killed a bloke by mistake, wasn't there? Because he thought it was a woman. Isn't that the Son of Sam or something? I can't remember which serial it was.
Possibly, yeah. But anyway,
like a woman from behind, and that's why he got shot. But I can't remember which serial killer it was.
I've been caught out with that in the past. But anyway, okay then. This is how I became to be picked up by Fred and Rose West. I was hitching from Glastonbury with a friend on the way back from Glastonbury in 1979. Dropped us off as soon as they could. It was only when I saw pictures of them years later that it clicked. I realised that we had had a lucky escape.
What do you
so
say?
There you go.
That's with a spade, Vic.
Sure. Yep. Spin the wheel of justice. Novelty Island. Anyway, Reeves. The thing is, though, Reeves also claimed to have given Yorkshire Ripper Peter Sutcliffe a cup of tea when he worked in a loading bay in Darlington in the 1970s.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's that.
Well. And did you think Vic may be doing a bit of bullshit there?
I don't know.
How come he's such a serial killer magnet? Surely the police should hire him and then deploy him, and then just wait for people to come to him. And
what I want to know is did Fred say to him, "You are a fop, Mr. Reeves"? Is that where he got the catchphrase from?
Yes.
Fop, Mr. Reeves.
Or a top turn, Mr. West. But anyway, okay then. So there we go. That's roughly it. So what we'll do to end on, send you a clip there, Hemi, from Australian TV. We're going to play that just to finish on, just it's a bit of a a serious topic we've covered tonight, but to end up on a light-hearted clip. Good. See what kind of antics people get up to. But yeah, we're roughly there, so hopefully that finishes off what we started in September 2020, yeah?
Oh, Vic Reeves is nonce. Okay.
No.
I've been following close attention to everything that's just been said.
We can tell.
I sat next to Bob Mortimer on a plane some years ago, and it was EasyJet as well, I thought.
He was on that show with the Welsh guy who's not very fun, Rob Ryder. And they're doing this thing of telling the lies or the truth. And Bob Mortimer came up with stories like, I performed dentistry on myself and I used my son's gaming chair. So I pull up on the table and I lean back. And the way he was describing so incredulous. Like, I heard the dentist say to the nurse, Fuji9. So I looked up Fuji9 and found, it's a dental paste. And then they found it was the truth. Bob Mortimer performs dentistry on himself.
It's all that one, yeah. Well, the Welsh guy is not very funny. What me?
Rob Brydon. You're not Rob Brydon. Unless you're Rob Brydon.
I'm the Welsh guy who is funny.
I just said nobody heard any of your anecdote, Hobbit, because I was playing that clip. Ian said.
Oh, right.
Oh, fair enough. It wasn't very funny. Bob Mortimer does dentistry on himself.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anyway.
Let's
go. There you go.
But just think, if Fred West had murdered Vic Reeves, we wouldn't have to put up with that awful Randall and Hopkirk deceased that him and Bob did.
Oh no! Yeah. Why do they have to recreate everything? Why can't they just go away and never come back?
But then, if he murdered Vic Reeves, you wouldn't have had Big Night Out, would we? Which was brilliant, and we wouldn't have had the smell of Reeves and Mortimer, which was good. then they started to lose it a bit with Bang Bang.
Oh, Vic,
And then
Yeah,
they sort of-
if Fred had killed Vic, then we'd have never had the Master Chef thing, where he's floating around.
Yeah. We wouldn't have had that.
That was horrible. That gave me
Eggs and
nightmares.
bacon
Oh,
in
Gregory,
Jesus'
what's the gorgeous
voice.
sandy-coloured Labrador? Is that Gregory something?
Oh yeah. Or is he the consumer monkey?
Yeah.
You know what? Between
But
Vic
they,
Reese and Fred West, I think the jury's still out on who the true monster is.
Excellent. Anyway,
Oh, we haven't done Rose the prison years yet, have we?
we haven't. No, she dug it up with Myra Hindley.
Yeah.
And there you
Could
go,
be a
not more you can
Netflix
say.
show if it isn't already.
No, I don't think we need to do. We need to talk in depth about Rose lesing off with Myra Hindley.
Isn't that Prisoner Cell Block H?
Yeah. They actually.
No,
Did you know they remade Prisoner Cell Block H? It was called Wentworth.
But why? Oh yeah, no, I did see a bit of it. It was not very good.
Yeah.
you could have, instead of celebrity deathmatch, you could have criminal les-off. Like you said, like.
Oh.
Oh, what, Myra Hindley versus Ghislaine Maxwell?
Rose West versus that. What's that woman from Peterborough? I've forgotten her name.
Maria Abramovic.
Or Brand.
Who's the one with the one with the bit where the pictures usually are licking that knife? I can't. Joanna Dennehy. That's the one I was thinking of.
Ugh.
A.D. Lang.
Oh, is that one in the Charlize Theron played?
Oh.
Imperia Furiosa.
No, the serial killer.
Yeah,
Eileen
he killed a
Wuornos.
lot of people.
Monster was a film. I can't remember the
She killed
name.
Mad Max Stone Cold. It's Stone Dead, didn't she?
Yes.
Any more for any more?
Excellent.
Are we all done?
We all
Well,
do.
before we finish up,
actually,
can I
we're
just
coming
say?
short. We've only done an hour and 42. Did you want to round?
Well, I was
up?
going to
all-
say two coincidences. What done happened to me. So I'll go with the first one. Now, Ian's already heard this story because in the exclusive OnlyFans content, right? So I had a dream. I used to do horse riding, and the horse's name was Dodge. I should have changed his name there, but anyway. So horse's name was
Just
Dodge.
dox that
Used to go
horse.
horse riding, and him and I were on the bus, and the bus had to come to a stop because there was an avalanche. And I said, "Come on, Dodge, you're stronger than I am. Let's go and clear this rubble." I wake up this morning, as I usually do, and I start watching tool videos on YouTube, and it's about files and what wears out a file more, going back and forth or going forth and lifting. And the brand of the file being tested was Preferred, which is German for horse. I'm like, of all brand names for a file, why is it called horse when I've just had a dream about horse? The second coincidence is, yesterday my car's windscreen got smashed. Thank you, lorry driver whose reg plate I didn't get hold of. That was good. So I've had to have it off the road until I can get the windscreen replaced. Now, because of that, I said, "Mum, can you give us a lift into town?" She's like, "Yeah, go on then." So we go into town, get my appointment, and then I'm just finished with my appointment, and this woman, she's approaching me, and she said, "Oh, are you so-and-so?" And I said, "No, my name's Hobbit, internet racist." And she said, "Oh, okay, I'm just expecting a customer, and I don't know what he looks like." And I just picked up an accent. I said, "You're French?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh." So I started speaking to her in French, and she said, "Oh, yeah, I'm from the north. I don't think you know it." And she names the town, and then because my mum's there, she just says, "Oh, well, I was from so-and-so on the other side of the frontier, about 5 minutes from where you were." She said, "Oh, really?" And they started talking, and yeah, it was a small world, and it was like, if I hadn't decided to go to one place instead of the other, my windscreen wouldn't have been smashed, the car wouldn't have been out of commission, wouldn't have got a lift from a mum, and then this thing wouldn't have happened. So funny coincidences.
Yeah.
Spooky.
How about this one then? I'm reading the bits from the better bits from the sidelines in the latest Fortean Times. Constable Reuben Kimatai Lee, a Kenyan policeman, woke from a 9-month coma to find he'd been sacked for deserting his post and that a warrant had been issued for his arrest. Until he awoke and was able to tell medics who he was. Constable Lee's identity was unknown. He had no documents on him when he was involved in a road accident that left him comatose. His family had searched for him for months and had given him up dead. He was discharged from hospital to recuperate at home, and the police have agreed to reinstate him.
Messed up.
Yeah. Researchers
You're under arrest for deserting duty.
Yeah.
You better have a damn good explanation as to why.
Researchers have found that bees are attracted to plants laced with caffeine, that the substance makes them more focused, motivated and efficient at gathering nectar. They believe this could help save at-risk bee species and improve crop fertilisations. They're just going to get them hopped up on caffeine instead.
Just noticed there's someone in the chat called Sped West.
Sped West has been around for a long while.
I've got an interesting fact about him because he's the original clone of Fred West.
A study by the tax office, doesn't say what country, study by the tax office has shown the items companies have claimed on expenses include live lobsters, an adult-sized pink tutu, lederhosen, sex toys, a cremation and a tantric workshop session. The accountancy partnership said expenses that occur due to business circumstances are allowable, no matter how dubious they may seem.
Eerie.
Oh fuck! How about this one? While relaxing on the patio at Sedgefield Country Club in North Carolina, a 57-year-old golfer felt a stinging sensation on the side of his head, but shrugged it off as an insect bite. It was only when fellow golfers pointed out that he was bleeding and picked up a bullet nearby he realised that this had grazed him. No one at the scene remembers hearing a gunshot, and the sheriff's spokesperson Laurie Pogue said it appears the shooting was accidental, possibly from a bullet fired into the air some distance away.
Strange. Have you seen the ghost knocking over the pint?
Oh yeah,
the
I did
pub.
see that one. How about this?
You got that one?
Here's one for you, Ian. Scientists have urged Glastonbury festival goers to use on-site toilets rather than urinating in the fields, after research found dangerous levels of MDMA and cocaine in the White Lake River that flows through the festival site. Measurements both upstream and downstream of the site were taken before, during and after the festival in 2019 and revealed the concentration of drugs in the river quadrupled in the week after the festival. The river is home to rare European eels, and scientists fear the effect of the drugs on the fish could derail conservation efforts.
Well, I think more fascinating than that is just like, oh yeah, when the festival's there, the amount of ecstasy increases 4 times. So you're telling me that when they're gone, it's a quarter of it. So it's not gone whatsoever. It's like, it's just 4 times as much. So what's going on upstream then?
I reckon down from these festival sites, there'll be a load of MDMA fishmen coming out of the rivers. They'll be like all enlightened and shit.
Just put the ghost knocking over the pint in Sunderland. Have a watch. Let's see that one.
Where you put the spoopy ghost?
Put it in the chat, the general chat, whatever, on Discord. See that?
Yeah, just sorting it out now.
Yeah, this is a good one, and we can decide for ourselves. Ghost or no ghost?
I ain't afraid of no ghost.
CCTV footage of a ghost knocking over a pint.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Full screen.
Yes, please.
Let's have a look there.
Here we go. Here we go. Oh, I think I missed it.
Yeah, we need to play it again. The point's already over. Let's go
Play it
again.
again, Sam. You played it for her, now play it for me.
Here we go. Here's the point. What's the point?
What went on there?
Oh!
Oh.
You spill my pint.
Let's have another look. Oh.
So that was squarely resting on the beer mat.
It wasn't. It was just hanging on. It was hanging on the edge. It was a 50-50.
It was all
That's
on the mat.
That's the first angle, which is
all on the mat.
Inclusive.
Come from the second angle, you can see it's not.
It's on the edge.
No,
of the
that's
mat.
weird.
No, it's vanished.
I want to see it from the other angle again.
The ghost has stopped me. The ghost has stopped me doing it. Right, let's go again. Right. So there we go. There's that. So we got that there.
Right.
Here we go.
Oh, yeah. See it shove forwards.
I can't. That does not look like a. That's weird.
It gets shoved forwards.
It shows
it doesn't just tip. Oh, it is on the end of there, isn't it?
Yeah. Look.
Oh, yeah. That's
Very sudden.
Con job.
No, I'm going to say that was a ghost.
Yeah, there's a ghost, yeah? Poltergeist.
Let's put up a caution sign for health and safety.
Yeah.
Someone in the chat.
Con job. I'll say it is spooky that what's happened to their fucking lips.
Botox.
Yeah.
I think, let's see, I think there was a Loch Ness video as well. Hang on a minute. Not the one which was faked we looked at the other month. There was a new one, I believe, which was caught on the Loch Ness webcam.
Oh, how about this one then? Scientist Dr. Angus Davidson from Nottingham University has finally managed to raise another snail with a left-hand coil to its shell to mate with one in his lab, and previously produced. He had hatched more than 10,000 snails before he found a second anti-clockwise one. Left-hand coil snails have difficulty mating with right-hand ones because their genitals are on the wrong side.
He needs to get himself a girlfriend, doesn't he?
Yeah. Police in Georgia in the US are investigating a spate of headless goat carcasses floating down the Chattahoochee River. Environmentalist Jason Allseth said, "Over the past couple of years, I've seen more than a couple hundred, but never more than 20 to 30 at one given time, like we've started to see here lately. Police have failed to find any leads despite sightings of goat carcasses being dumped from bridges in broad daylight, and they haven't been able to pinpoint anyone who might be supplying the goats. They believe, however, the animals are being sacrificed by local Santeria cultists, as they are believed to include goat sacrifice in their rituals."
Peculiar. Not sure. I'm trying to find the Loch Ness video, but I can't. I got one of the Blue Peter Garden getting trashed. If you want to watch that,
I'd rather see Janet Ellis going, "It's very. What are you doing? Do you remember? I'm very disappointed in you."
You can watch that. Yeah. She was disgusted, and what's the program?
Jen, when they humiliated her and made her apologise for getting pregnant whilst not being married, and that's why she had to leave Blue Peter.
The other guy was taking cocaine. Actually, Richard Bacon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a messed up program, that is.
Oh, there was a Fortean film weekend in Gloucester, apparently.
Yeah, it looked quite good, actually.
Gloucester, the home of Fred West.
Appropriate.
Yeah.
There was a film that looks
like
like
the DB Cooper thing. Then, Ian, is that something that floats your boat, or
what?
The DB Cooper, does that?
The DB Cooper. I'm not familiar with the DB Cooper. What's
the guy who hijacked the airplane and jumped out, and he was dressed like he was in the Matrix?
No. The viewers a bit of info on that. I'm into Purple Aki, but I'm not too.
In America, he did a heist on a plane and then jumped out, and he was never ever seen again. Neither him or the money. I think they found a couple of bills, and that was it.
Yeah. And that was the last they saw of him.
Yeah. It's quite a famous one. There's been a couple of films and stuff about it.
Yeah.
A couple of people are claiming to be him as well, I think.
Like Spartacus.
Yeah, I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus.
Shall we have a look?
So's my wife.
Shall we have a look at the Blue Peter Garden getting trashed? Or
You got it.
Hang on, we do. I'll stick it in the Discord chat. Hang on.
Has Dom passed out, has he?
He's on the gutter. He's in the gutter.
Went too early, did he?
Are you there?
No, Dom's gone. Literally gone.
He's gone.
Yeah, dropped out. Can't take the pace. Let's see what Unexplained Pistries have got to say. Mysterious lice captured on camera over UK motorway.
Mysterious mice.
Mysterious lights. Looks like bollocks to me. Looks like a reflection of somebody's. Looks like a reflection of somebody's speedo. What do you think to those lights?
Yeah, it looks like a reflection on the glass.
Yeah, it looks like a reflection.
Nothing special.
Yeah, you can see that bit. You see the bit at the top towards the middle. That definitely looks like an instrument panel, doesn't it? Fucking idiots.
Be any old shit. I put in Discord the Blue Peter Garden, the Blue Peter Garden trashing. We'll have a quick look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, when Janet Ellis, it was Janet Ellis's like, you've been very naughty.
Vandals broke into the Blue Peter Garden and caused rather a lot of damage. And one really cruel thing they did was to pour fuel oil into the fish pond. Well, we've drained the pond and we've rescued some of the fish, but a few of them have died, and the oil itself has caused a lot of damage.
The vandals then broke our lovely ornamental urn given to us by Mr. Taylor from Barnet. They then smashed up our sundial and then callously threw it into the pond.
And if that wasn't enough, they then trampled on the bedding plants as well. Well, we hope to repair the damage, and we may even be able to repair the ornamental urn. But it's very sad to think that a few people take such pleasure from harming their fellow human beings and from hurting animals as well.
And here are the survivors. It really is an absolute miracle that they have survived. Brian has come along to give us a bit of advice. Brian, what do you think?
Killed the fish as well.
The awful ordeal that they've been through.
I think they're looking amazingly well.
Well, it's not a
Who
pretty
did that?
sight, is it, what they did?
Say it was Dennis Wise.
People who do this sort of thing must be mentally ill, Janet, mustn't they?
I think so.
Terrible when you come to look at it.
Can you find Janet Ellis apologising for being pregnant?
Must be mentally ill. That's a very racist way to talk about the coons.
Yeah.
What about? I just posted one there. Matt Bianco on Saturday Superstore in 1984.
No,
Stick that one.
A 5-star was way better than that.
Got five. It's similar sort of thing, basically the same thing. And stick Matt Bianco on. Let's see what
5 stars my favourite.
Like 5-star. I'm sure you can find that one. 5-star.
I bet you're gonna have to listen on stream.
Hello, Simon. You're through to Matt Bianco.
Hello, Matt Bianco.
Hello,
You're a bunch of wankers.
You're a bunch of wankers. Here he is. Elliot Fletcher.
Even though the
Simon on line 1. Elliot Fletcher. That's 5-star. Yeah.
And not always appropriate guests.
Stick him on. Elliot Fletcher. Where is Elliot Fletcher today? He's probably an accountant or something.
Elliot, what's your question?
I'd like to ask 5-star where they're so fucking crap. They're fucking.
Thanks very much.
Why are you so fucking crap?
They were crap as well. They were crap.
Yeah. So there you go. I think we're done now, aren't we?
Excellent. I don't know where Dom is. I think he's gone, but excellent. Good show anyway.
Anyway, night all.
Night all.
Remember, Fred West patios.
Remember,
Fred West news.
You're a bunch of fucking wankers.